Hello everyone, my name is Mark Fowler and I'm the Executive Director for the Stucco Manufacturers Association and I'm the Editorial Director for Walls and Ceilings magazine. I hope you've enjoyed our first 6 or 7 programs on the Home Inspector series. The reason we put those together is we know that home inspectors are charged with a great duty to look at buildings, and when it comes to stucco they may not be expertise in stucco. We're here to help with that. We plan on making more of these videos as time goes on, so if I could ask you to give us a little hand and click that little like button and push subscribe, and then that'll help keep you informed of new programs that are going to come up in the future. This program is a 2-part series, and this one is going to be on windows, and this is going to be part 1 on windows. So let's get started. The first thing to understand is windows have been around a long time. Windows stucco has also been around a long time. There are all types of windows and not all windows are created equal. So let's take a look at some of the more common windows you're going to see, because there's 3 types you should probably be aware of. The first and most common type of window you're probably going to run across is what we call the nail flange window or nail fin window. This is noticed by it has an integral nail flange around and is meant for surface mounting. It is used primarily in residential and light commercial construction, and it's a favorite for construction. First of all, the low cost and also the low maintenance abilities to it. If you notice, they should be flashed properly like that and integrated with water-resistant barrier, and they work really well. The second type of window you'd run across is what we would call a non-flanged window. This is really common with commercial storefront types like these aluminum windows. There's even wood frame windows like this. These type of windows, because they have no flange, they have to have some sort of a sealant joint around there to keep the water out. The third type of window, and this is the one that kind of might confuse some home inspectors, especially ones that are looking at older stucco jobs, meaning stucco has been around for a while, is what we call a retrofit window. They're kind of noticeable. You can almost see them from the street because they have a very wide band around them. And the reason they have a wide band around them is what happens is they'll take the glazing out of the window, leave the frame in place, because remember in the nail flange window how it sits again, it gets put on the wall and buried in the stucco like that. So that way, without having to remove anything, they just cut that out, leave the frame in, and they kind of have an opening, and they put these over on top. They put sealant on them, and they'll seal up against the stucco like that. They work really well if everything underneath has been done correctly. They're not going to solve any water problems, but if you have no water problems, they work quite well. I'd like to explain why it's so important to look at windows. If you think about it, we really focus a lot on windows. There's a reason why. If you think about it, we're looking down a stud wall and you're seeing you have stucco on the outside and you have drywall on the inside. Well, these actually create a barrier. They create a barrier to what we call negative wind pressures, because as the wind kicks up on the outside with the inside being stable, what happens is you get that vacuum pressure. You know how when you have the back door just a little bit open and you open up the front door and it shuts real hard? Well, that's because of the air pressure and the air gap and negative pressures that actually cause the seal. And when the wind kicks up, you can actually have it where it wants to draw some of that moisture in. So, but that's good that these air barriers, they keep that protected. That's exactly part of the environment. And even when we put a pipe through a wall and we put it out and we penetrate that stucco wall, and let's say we seal it, but maybe even it's got a little bit of leak in there and a little bit of water, air gets through, it's not really going to go through because it's not being sucked through because the drywall is keeping that pressure from reaching that. So it really is more just related on gravity. It doesn't mean we shouldn't seal it and take care of it. Of course we should, but you have to understand it doesn't have that negative pressure on it. Conversely, if we have a window that goes in, well, there's no stucco over the window, there's no drywall over the window. So now what we have is a potential, what we call a through-wall penetration, meaning that space between the framing and the window, it goes straight through. And yes, we can seal that up, and that's the idea when I said before we have to have a sealant joint in there. You've got to seal that. And what happens is it's not just gravity flow, it's that air pressure that's causing that. So it becomes very susceptible to water leaks. Here's looking at an exterior building that's got its casing bead around a non-flange storefront type window. We've got a pipe penetration coming through with a nice collar around it. We're going to seal up, and there's building paper on it. Building paper's been cut nice and tight around there. That's great. And we can see they're going to put sealant in that joint. If you look inside that pipe, you can see their stuff. It doesn't go all the way through. But now take a look between the window and the casing bead there. If you look right here, if you look at that, you can see some shiny back. Those are the studs in the background. So this kind of shows the idea that what we call a through wall. That means that's why it's so, it goes all the way through. If there's a breach in that system, we have a problem. Now, this is why a nail flange window is so desirable, because it's got kind of, and where people get mistaken thinking it's a self-flash. It's not a self-flashed window, but it does have an accessory attachment to it, which should be integral with it, that can be sealed and keep that through wall flashing penetration from working. This is why nail flange windows are so popular. An important part to make that work is a good sealant. You want to have that flange. It should be continuous and integral with the nail flange, with the window itself, and it should be set in a bed of sealant. As you can look carefully here, you can see it's been flashed and with the flashing, and now it's been pressed into that, and you can see the sealant oozing out all over. So that becomes a really good seal. So if we've got a good rated window and we have an integral nail flange and we've flashed the opening properly and we seal it in there, we should have a good seal. The next important step is to make sure that the building paper or house wrap tucks up underneath the flashing and over the top of the thing. We want to make this shingle fashion. The idea is if any water gets in, it kind of travels on down. And it won't be sucked into the building because all of the air penetrations have been sealed. So we know that really works well. We look at that and we think that's great. We've got our window and we've got it flashed properly. Well, first of all, how do you know if it's done right? I'm going to tell you, unfortunately, you as an inspector looking from the outside, you have no way of knowing. Sorry, I can't even help you with that. You're just looking, we're going to do some inspection on part 2 and we'll go through that. But in case you have to do a new one or somebody has to redo one, there's AMA has standards, ASTM has standards. The SMA also has a paper. Ours is a little bit shorter and more specific to stucco, and it's a little easier to read and simplified. I certainly am not saying not to go to the other ones. You can, but ours are pretty simple and easy to follow. They're on our website. Since you're looking at all these buildings after they've been lived in for a while, probably for a sale or an inspection or something like that, you're looking for obvious signs of water intrusion. And sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes you can look and go, yeah, we got a problem here. You can see with these, we got a problem. But I got to tell you, more often than not, you're not going to see a lot on the outside, but there could be some real damage. In fact, usually when you see something like this on the outside, it really gets scary what could be underneath. Another little thing to look for is unusual staining and stuff. And I will give you a little bit of a tip, is that with all the heightened activity on flashing, because it's really good we're doing all that, but we're starting to see a lot of people that are making new flashing products and new weather-resistant barriers, and sometimes they're not chemically compatible. And I can tell you what ends up happening is they put these materials together, they sit together, and after a few years they start to have a chemical reaction, and then water might come through, and maybe it's not leaking or whatever, but they get these brown stains or what look like rust stains on the outside. I'm just giving you a heads up. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going on. I do know on one of these jobs, that's exactly, actually both these jobs, that's exactly what was going on. So that can happen. So just because you see this doesn't mean it's an automatic problem, except for cosmetic, but just so you know, you're aware of that. One invaluable tool that you should always have, I think it's very important to have, is a moisture meter. And there's two types of moisture meter. We have the probe meter and a scan meter. The scan meter is when it does what it says, it scans. And they work, they're nice. They're good to kind of give you some sort of rough indication. Be careful with scan meters, because the problem is all of these things work off conductivity, so that means they can actually read a metal strap, and especially like in California where they do a lot of metal earthquake strapping, they can go over a metal strap and go, oh, there's a water in there. It's just maybe a metal strap, so you want to be careful of that. The more reliable type is what we would call a probe meter, because you can actually drill into the thing, and you can into the stucco, and you can push through and reach to the wood framing and feel, and you can actually tell, because if you hit metal strap, you're going to tell. When you hit it, you should be able to tell that it's metal. So they're a lot more reliable. Well, this concludes part 1 of our real quick, simple thing on windows. Part 2, we're going to get into how to use a moisture meter. I'm actually going to take you through a job inspection and show you how we inspect for moisture on that. And we'll go through that and talk a little bit about pressure ratings with windows and stuff. I'm going to again ask you to please click like, and if you could please click subscribe so you can get notified of new ones coming out. We're going to try to do these on a regular basis. I really enjoy seeing you guys. Also, know we have a Stucco certification program, because everything we're teaching here, we make sure we drill into the stucco contractor's head so they understand it, so that if you have to specify somebody, you know that, hey, we're getting it done by somebody that was actually trained. So until part 2, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.